Okay, so we're gonna be doing some brisket today. Different people have different ways of choosing their brisket. One method that I've always liked is giving it the wiggle test. I know it sounds kind of funny, but the wiggle test basically means the more it can wiggle back and forth, the less fat it has on the inside. So I mean, if this works for you, you might look like a crazy person in the supermarket doing this to the brisket, but at least you know what you're doing. And this will pretty much tell you that there's a lot of meat to fat ratio. The meat content to the fat content is higher. A lot of the times you'll do this to a brisket and it won't budge. I tell you there's a lot of stiffness, which means there's a lot of fat in between. So try it out. Next time you get a brisket, give it the wiggle test. The more it can fold back and forth, the less fat it probably has on the inside. Also give it a visual inspection. I mean, you want to have some fat. You don't want to have it with a lot of fat on the top. So that way you can get as much of the brisket out as possible. Alright, so first things first, you just want to cut it open once you get it. Grab the brisket. I have my trash can down here. It was nice and easy. Let it drip a little bit. Might not need the sink after all. And you have your nice, this seems to be a nice trim piece of brisket. Alright. With a brisket like this that doesn't have too much fat on it, I kind of want to keep the fat there is, just for the simple reason that you want some fat in there. The fat it'll make it a little bit juicier. It won't allow it to dry out as much. But you will have some that have a cap that's pretty thick. You might want to reduce that before you start seasoning. When it comes to seasonings, people use different things. The most basic one I've heard of is salt and pepper, a good combination of salt and pepper. The one that I started using, and this is strictly because I like the way their meat comes out, is I like using Rudy's brisket rub. Try not to grab it because I have a thing. Alright, so if you ever been to Rudy's, you've had their brisket, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so you got your rub here. What I like to do is I like to pour some on the base so that I can have to pinch out of. So I'm going to end up using all of this. Just going to pour out the can. Like I said, salt and pepper work just fine if you want to go that route. Other brands have their own brisket rub, but I kind of like the Rudy's taste. So as you can see, I'm just kind of rubbing it on there. This is the fat side, so flip it over. Try to keep as much of the rub on there as possible. This is the part that has most of the meat exposed. This is the one that's going to keep most of the flavor, so you want to rub it on there at least once and then go back and do it again. I'm going to get me another thing that I ran out, so I'm going to get some more. And since for the most part I got enough rub, as much rub as I wanted on there, I'm just going to sprinkle. I'll actually use the top part now. It does get a little messy, so give you a nice little bark to it, nice little bark taste to it. Flip it over one more time just to be on the safe side, kind of rub that in there. And one more time, just for good measure on this side. Just to make sure You got every possible nook and cranny in here. All right, so you got your brisket. You got it seasoned. You got it picked out. You got it seasoned with whatever flavor or rub you like. I like to wrap it, leave it over for overnight. Let the rub kind of like seep in. What I'll do is I'll let it sit for a while I get my smoker ready, and then we'll pop it in there and we'll see how it goes. I just pulled one of the trays from the smoker where we're going to be actually laying our brisket. Now the great debate on brisket is fat side up or fat side down. I prefer it fat side up. So there you go. I was able to lay it down on one big slab. It is about a 9.5 to 10 pound brisket. It's not a big brisket. Roughly about an hour to an hour and a half per pound. You wanna give yourself when you're cooking this brisket. This should take anywhere between 12 to 14 hours to cook, if done at the right temperature. If you want to do it low and slow. So once again, fat side up, my preference, and we're about to load this baby up in the smoker. So we're gonna be smoking the brisket in this Masterbuilt electric smoker. I just recently cleaned it, so when you look inside, it looks like it's brand new, but it's gone. It's smoked about 8 or 10 briskets, a turkey, some ribs. It's also smoked sausage. Smoked a little bit of everything. You tried everything out. So very simple, easy product to use. Always make sure you get your drip pan set up in the back. I mean, and this is very simple. You have your water dish here. You got this pan that's gonna actually throw anything that falls down to the back. So you want to turn on the Masterbuilt here. It has an on button. There's two settings you have to set before it actually starts to work. You have your temperature and your time. All right. So your temp is, you want to hit that at about 220. 220 is low and slow. All right, you just set temp, and then it asks you for the time. I usually give it about 18 hours, even though I'm not going to go that far, but I'll set it and then set that. And when you do that, you're going to notice the little red heating light turns on. Once that's on, you're good to go. Every 30 to 45 minutes, add some chips to it so that it continues smoking. Alright, so I took the liberty of adding some apple cider vinegar. I put a little bit in this spray bottle. This one, sometimes what I'll do is I'll spray it on the actual brisket after about 6 or 8 hours into it. Gives it that little crisp, nice little crisp bark around it. But I also added some on the drip pan over here. I had seen some other tutorials that said you should wrap the foil easier cleanup, and I tried that. The problem with that is that when you wrap this drip pan and the bottom tray in foil, especially on the drip pan, what will happen is the vinegar will actually get underneath the actual bottom layer of the foil, and it'll actually elevate it, and all of your apple cider vinegar is actually going to go underneath the foil, so you in essence don't even have any type of drip pan with any type of vinegar, because it's actually all underneath the foil. So I just decided to go the way it is and actually put it on there without any foil. Alright, the next step is to make sure you have some chips that you can be able to put in there. What I like to use is a mesquite. Basically what you do is you're going to stick some of that in here in the wood tray. It's recommended every hour. I like to keep an eye on it because it seems like my chips kind of like burn off sooner. So I kind of keep an eye on it and refill the chips every 30 to 45 minutes. Just depending. If you put too much on the little tray, sometimes they get stuck. So don't get over anxious and try to put too much in there. Just put what can fit without having to stuff it in there, and then just keep an eye on it. Once it starts smoking, you know if you need to add more chips. Alright, so as you can see, we have this brisket ready to rock and roll. You want to do a real quick check. You want to make sure you have your brisket. You want to make sure you have your drip pan with some apple cider vinegar in there. You want to make sure this this pan is also there. If you notice this little V-shaped thing going on here, this actually, what happens is that as the brisket is cooking, some of the water is going to start rolling down through this door. If you don't put that right on the edge, what will happen is that you'll start getting a lot of, if you have it like that farther to the back, a lot of the water is going to be dripping, is going to be coming out through the front. So I learned that the hard way. Make sure it's flush to the end, so when this door closes, the dripping will actually land on the thing. All right. So next thing here is you want to stick in your meat probe. You want to go at it at the thickest part of the brisket. You want to insert it, but at the same time, you don't want to hit a. You don't want to leave it where the fat is. You want to leave it where the meat is. So I'm gonna stick this in there. Let me. All right. So I had to take 2 hands to be able to stick that thing in there. You want to stick it in as far in as possible, towards the middle as possible, and try to keep it to where you're still having some. You have contact with the meat in there. So that's going in there. All right, I mentioned earlier about the chips. So this pretty much, as far as the brisket is concerned, you're pretty much done. Season it, stick in the meat probe, close it. That's pretty much it for the brisket. All right, so all you have to do is close this latch here. All right, now I added some chips to the little hopper here. What that'll do is you'll actually stick this thing in here. Notice how I didn't overload it. Turn it in there and then give it a half a turn. That'll actually bring it down. The key to a nice, soft, tender brisket is low and slow. Okay, so essentially what that means is I want to keep my temperature. I want to keep it at 220 set temp. And then I also want to set my time. I mean, this one I usually I give it 18-20 hours. All right, so it's maybe been about 15 minutes. The temperature has gone up inside the smoker to about 192. We're very close to our temperature that we want to see. I don't know if you can see it, but it already started smoking there. Let me see if we can get a shot of the inside where it's beginning to smoke in there. So that's what you want. You want to see that. All right, something that I wanted to cover in regards to the adding of the chips. Yes, you're going to be smoking for about 10 to 15 hours depending on the size of your brisket, maybe sometimes even longer. But it doesn't mean you smoke it, you add chips for that amount of time. Roughly any temperature, any internal temperature of your brisket, once it hits about 140 to 150 more or less, it kind of seals itself. So it doesn't matter how much smoke you add to it, you're not adding any more smoke flavor to the brisket. So after about 4 hours, give or take, adding chips is not necessary. Always check the temperature on your internal temperature of your brisket. That'll tell you whether you should add more chips or not. I like this Masterbuilt because it comes in with a meat probe that you can just press here in this button. It'll tell me what the temperature of the brisket is at this time. Of course, it's been 15 minutes, but at this time the temperature is about 48 degrees. But there it is. It's a thing of beauty. It's continuing to smoke. Nice smoking. You can even hear some of the drippings already start to come down. All right, so it's about 5 in the morning right now. We've been cooking this brisket, I want to say about 7 hours, 8 hours more or less. So we've kept it at 220. And if you check our meat probe here, it's looking at 173, which is perfect. I'm going to continue cooking it nice and slow. At this point, it has already reached over that plateau that it stays at for a while. Sometimes your brisket will stall. Don't freak out. It's normal, perfectly normal. You just gotta let it play through and get it going after it stalls out. All that means is that you're getting a nice juicy brisket. All right, so what we're gonna do right now is we're actually going to open it up and we're going to spray some of this apple cider vinegar onto it so that it can give a little bit more of a bark to it. You'll get a bark to it that tastes really nice. All right, so open it up here real quick. See that smoke coming out? Ooh, that is some good brisket right there. Well, gives you a little kick. All right. So basically, all you want to do here is you want to give it a little spritz. All right, so the brisket has been cooking about 12, 13 hours now. The next step would be to wrap it in foil, which I've already done. You pull it out of the smoke, or you wrap it in foil. And the next part, or the next step, is to let it sit for about 2 hours in a cooler. Just keep it nice and insulated. And then you want to put it in a cooler. You let it sit there in the cooler for about 2 hours, and what this is going to do is it's going to let some of the juices in the foil absorb back into the brisket, and when you're ready to cut it, it'll be nice and tender. All right, this journey started over 14 hours ago, 15 hours ago, and we are at the end. We will be cutting our brisket. All right, so at this point, we cooked our brisket to at least 185. We pulled it out, wrapped it in foil, left it sitting here for 2 hours inside a cooler. Now the fun part begins. Pulling it out and actually cutting it, slicing it. All right, so, whoa, nice and warm there. Take the towel off. Ooh. Basking in its own juices. Bring this out, hot. Put the towel over here. All right, put the trash can here. I'm gonna open it up nice and slow. Don't want to scare the brisket. So what I ended up doing is I ended up folding it, wrapping it, and then giving it an additional, so try to prevent any leakage. And the pied de resistance. Brisket is there. All right. So this one will be a little hot. Let me get my food handling gloves. And you can just pull it. Pull this one, throw it. Pull this one, throw it. And then slide it. As you can see, it still has a lot of the juices here. puddle of goodness right there. Get that. Stayed on there all cooked long. All right. So the next thing I did is I invested in a electric cutter, an electric knife. This will save a lot of time and headache. All right. So let's dig into this and see what it looks like. Turn it over. We will discover it together. All right. Whoa. See that? Whoa. That is some brisket. Get a slice out of there. Looking at this brisket right here, I mean, look at that. That's some brisket right there. All right, all that's left is to cut and enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, thank you for watching.